Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. So, we have this article in front of us. This article was published in the Hindu on 14 September. Why this article is very interesting to us is because of the very important fact that it discusses a bill about the very federal nature of the government, right? This article tells us about it. It's a bill that will be passed and will be put on the table in the upcoming sessions sessions of the parliament. This becomes a very important part for polity, governance, and in mains, particularly for understanding the federal structure and how we can, with examples, tell how to improve, what to do, and solution wise as well. Let's look into this article, understand more about it. The first thing is this article is about the Indian Ports Bill of 2022. As the first line says with it, let me just yes, the Indian Ports Act of 1908 is obsolete. They're saying it's obsolete in many respects and need to a complete overhaul. Why is the author is saying this? Is because pre-legislative consultation of a draft bill with stakeholders is good practice. Union Ministry of Ports. So understand the Union Ministry. The Union Ministry of Ports, Shipping, and Waterways, right? Union Ministry of Ports, Shipping, and Waterways needs to commended for holding 4 rounds of consultation. 4 rounds of consultation with the draft Indian Ports Bill replace the 1908 Act, right? There was a 2021 draft also, but that draft was rejected. This is the 2022 draft that will be tabled on the parliament. India has, now let's a background of the information which this article is based on. There are 12 major ports in India and 212 non-major ports. Pretty easy to remember, 12 and 212 non-major ports. Okay. Small fishing, right? Non-major ports, what are they doing? They are small fishing harbors and only few of them cater to international shipping. So there are small fishing harbors and only few of them cater to international shipping. Now major ports figure in the union list. तो union list के अंदर आपके major ports, I'll write it here, union list के अंदर आते हैं आपके major ports. The major ports are present in the union list, come under the jurisdiction of the central government. It's given, right? But what about the non-major ports? And the non-major ports are coming under the concurrent list, right? Concurrent list, and hence they come under the state governments, but the center concurrent list, it comes under the state governments, but the center has overriding legislative and executive powers. This is what is being used in this bill now, as we can see and understand ahead, reading ahead. Now, what is the problem in this 2021 draft? Let us understand the problem in the 2021 draft, the old draft. What is the problem? Let us understand. 1997 में, in 1997 there was a maritime state development council. एक maritime state development council बनाई गई थी एग्जीक्यूटिव ऑर्डर पे एक और ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बनी है या एक और कमीशन बनी है, दैट इज नीति आयोग. You have to understand and remember this. With the Union Minister of Shipping, जो यूनियन मिनिस्टर हैं शिपिंग के, यूनियन मिनिस्टर ऑफ शिपिंग एज द चेयरपर्सन, राइट? और उसके मेंबर्स जो थे, मिनिस्टर्स इन चार्ज ऑफ पोर्ट्स, मिनिस्टर ऑफ स्टेट इन चार्ज ऑफ पोर्ट्स एंड मैरीटाइम स्टेट्स ऑफ द मैरीटाइम स्टेट्स, मतलब गुजरात, महाराष्ट्र, तमिलनाडु, states like these as the members. The MSDC, it served as the MSDC served as the apex advisory body for coordinated development of major ports, right? Apex advisory body for coordinated developments of the major ports and the non-major ports, right? The problem, however, was कि 25 सालों में, in 25 years, it has met only 18 times. This is a very big problem. A commission that has been formed by executive order is meeting only 18 times to discuss something in 25 years. This is a problem. So now what happened was, the Union Ministry of Shipping provides secretarial services. And what made 2021 draft Indian Ports Bill controversial? Why was it made controversial? Were chapter 2 and 3, which were giving statutory status along with wide ranging powers and functions to MSDC. Imagine this: and commission which has been formed by an executive order that has met only 18 times in 25 years is now being given statutory status along with more powers. This sounds a little bit strange, right? So this is what make it a permanent body with its own office, staff, accounts and audit, a complete statutory body. A body like MSDC is necessary, of course, it is necessary, but the nature and quantum of its work do not call for either statutory status or a permanent body. So, of course, this commission is necessary, but the work is not so much undertaken by this that it require a statutory status and more power. They are not able to do the powers or functions that is given to them. How are we giving them more powers? So this was a great problem in chapter 2 and 3 of the 2021 draft. Maritime states suspect that the real aim of the statutory come permanent MSDC is to curtail the powers and to develop and manage non-major ports. What are they saying is, they think that it's a foul play on the side of the government, that they want to take away the powers of the states by making this a statutory body or a permanent body with an executive order, right? It is less about efficient allocation of resources and more about control by the center. Now, what is the next is saying that it sought to empower the MSDC. 2021 draft contained several provisions. There were several problematic provisions that were present in the 2021 draft. For example, to monitor the development of non-major ports and ensure their integrated development with major ports and the national plan, and to order an appropriate inquiry, first of all, if any port contravenes the national plan. It also empowered the center to make port non-operational if it was not consonance with the national plan. So there is a national plan. If the port is not following that national plan, this port will be considered non-operational. It prescribed draconian penalties. The penalties were very heavy, including imprisonment of non-compliance with the MSDC's direction by port authorities and port officials and other persons. So you can say the government order or this 2021 draft of this bill gave MSDC some draconian powers, which included heavy penalties and imprisonment if the port authority or the port did not follow the orders of the government, the central government, that is. The next is 2022 draft has dropped many of these provisions, right? But it has still retained the problematic provision of making MSDC a statutory come permanent body. They have a problem with this. It also has retained open-ended provisions like section 10C. I will write the section 10C, that authorize the central government to entrust any administrative and financial functions to MSDC, right? So section 10C gives authorization to MSDC for any financial and administrative functions, right? In order to ensure the composition of the MSDC in favor of the center. Now again, the first thing is, first of all, this, that it will have its own administrative and financial functions. The second one is, it makes 5 secretaries and 1 joint secretary to the government of India, besides the administrator of coastal union territories. So 5 secretaries, 1 joint secretary of the government of India, and the secretaries, the administrators of the coastal union territories as the members of this MSDC. Now this becomes a problem. Why this becomes a problem is because now a permanent executive such as joint secretary or secretary is being made part of a commission that mainly was with the had powers under the state, right? So आप समझ सकते हो कि कितना issue इसमें आ सकता है. A state which was initially under constitution given the right to maintain a port, by an executive order is now being shifted under the center and can now be we worked as a central, machinery, with central machinery, wherein the vote of an officer would count the same as the vote of a minister. So vote of an officer will count the same of that of a minister. Now this is a very problematic thing. Like the Goods and Service Tax Council, the MSDC should consist only of concerned ministers of the union and maritime states. Officers should only be special invitees or have an observer role, right? They also give a solution to this कि अगर आपको करना ही है तो आप एक काम करो कि 50% weightage to the votes of the ministers representing the state and 50% weightage to the votes of ministers representing the maritime states in proportion to the number of functioning non-major ports. So for example, there are 212 non-major ports, right? Let us consider, for example, there are let's just consider this one port, right? One port. In this port, suppose there are 6 and 4 ministers, right? What they are saying is to give 50% weightage to ministers of central and 50% weightage to minister of state. That means that these 4 ministers and these 6 ministers have equal weightage in any votes, right? So this is a very interesting proposition, but we have to see and figure out whether this works out or not. They also give an example of how ports are managed in different countries. In US, what happens is the counties and the municipalities with port operations largely in private hands, right? They're owned and managed by counties and municipalities, but operations are with private hands. So owned, managed, and operation wise different. In Germany, they are managed by municipal and regional levels, at the municipal and regional levels. In China, in fact, they are saying ports are maintained at the municipal levels, with local authorities have a substantial stake in corporatized ports, right? Thus international experience also shows that ports are best managed by local and regional governments. So they are saying give back the ports to the state government. The next is statistics. We have to understand some stats in the answers as well. So the statistics that the author gives us is of ease. So what the author is saying कि अगर suppose non-major ports were performing very badly, then also if the center would have intervened, then it would have made sense, right? But he's saying that in fact the non-major ports are performing better. The non-major ports have fared much better than major ports. Why is he saying this? Is because the total cargo of non-major ports went up to 45%, right? Just a minute, I think I lost my cursor. So it went from 8% to 45%. 45%, that is the cargo, right? And the current average growth rate, CAGR, of non-major ports was 14% as compared to 4.8% of major ports. So this is interesting, very interesting, कि अगर ये नॉन परफॉर्मिंग एसेट्स होते तो गवर्नमेंट इंटरवीन करता तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं थी, बट दे आर परफॉर्मिंग बेटर दैन मेजर पोर्ट्स, बट स्टिल द गवर्नमेंट वांट्स टू इंटरवीन एंड दैट्स अ प्रॉब्लम. ओके, the next thing that they're saying, it's very interesting to understand and see this. They are giving the example of some maritime states like Gujarat. Take the example of Gujarat. What the author is saying is कि major ports performed various port functions with their own staff and equipment and with all the usual shortcomings of public center enterprises. Maritime states developed non-major ports almost entirely on PPP basis, PPP, public private partnership basis. Let's take the example of Gujarat. A very interesting example of Gujarat has been given in this sense. Why? There are different ports in Gujarat. Developed India's first private port, right? First private port कहाँ पे? At Pipavav, Pipavav, right? With APM terminals, with APM terminals. Let's Google this and understand what this is. But Gujarat has developed first private port at Pipavav, largest captive port at Sikka, right? Largest capital port at largest captive port at Sikka with Reliance Industries. Third, this is not just one. Reliance Industries largest commercial multi-purpose port with Adani at Mundra. This is the Mundra port. This has been in the news recently as well, right? And next is first two LNG terminals, liquefied natural gas terminals. First, India's the first two LNG terminals at Dahej, right? Dahej and Hazira. This is very interesting and very important to understand. These examples are the only thing that will fetch you more marks in the exam. The first dedicated chemical port terminal at Dahej as well. Other states like Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu have followed suit. From 1996 onwards, Center has adopted the PPP model, but the process of awarding concessions has been rather slow. So they are saying that state government have worked so much and far better. Example of Gujarat with first private port at Pipavav, uh, largest captive port with Reliance Industries at Sikka, commercial multipurpose port at Mundra with Adani, first two LNG ports at Dahej and Hazira, first dedicated chemical port at Dahej, right? This is the Gujarat example. Next, and finally, we can also conclude by saying that it is necessary regulatory and financial burdens would be imposed upon port trust if it is given to the center. The private terminal operators and investors would be under much scrutiny, right? Last thing we should be doing is saddling non-major ports with the same handicaps as the major ports, as they have been suffering. He's saying that it will choke future developments of non-major ports and stifle novel initiatives by maritime states such as Gujarat has done on its own. In market-oriented economy, so he's saying that central planning has no place in market-oriented economy where non-major ports and now even major ports are developed almost entirely through private investments. So ports that are developing through private investments, the center should not intervene in them. MSDC be scrapped, and that MSDC remains an apex advisory body. It still remains an apex advisory body. This is what their demands are, keeping with port reform strategies worldwide. So this is what the solution. This is the solution that we can provide in the answer, that MSDC remains an advisory body. First, second, center should work towards decentralization, deregulation, and corporatization, and private sector participation for major ports as well. This is again very controversial, but again, this is a solution oriented approach we have to follow in the answers. Finally, substantial equity stake in corporatized major ports should be given to states and municipal corporations, and it should limit overseeing to the higher functions of border control, competition policy, port security, environment protection, and hinterland connectivity. 4 solution oriented approaches, full marks in your mains exam in just 250 words, and this is what expected if a question like this arises. So why was this all article important? This was important for polity, for governance, for federal, understanding the federal structure. Gujarat example of ports is very important. Non-major and major ports in our country, MSDC as a commission that has been formed by the executive on an executive order, Niti Aayog in a second one. So this was the in-depth analysis of this editorial. Hope you all liked it, and do, if you liked it, do subscribe and share the channel as well. Thank you for watching, everyone. Keep supporting us, and all the best.